Hey, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Terry Little from Foxconn Interconnect Technology, and I'd like to introduce Wang from Intel. What we're going to discuss today as part of the work stream for immersion is high-speed interconnect signal integrity in immersion cooling and the effects. But mainly what we're going to do is focus on a white paper that we're putting together. The white paper is obviously significantly larger than this. We're going to hit on the high spots of the white paper. The white paper is about 48 pages, so it's going to be published later this year. So we're just going to talk about the essential portions of it. Okay, I want to give a shout out to all those involved in the white paper. Thank you very much for your contributions, FIT, Intel, TE, Oleon, Immersion, AMD, Unicom, Formerico, and Molex. Very, very great input from everyone. It was a very good effort, and we're very proud to be part of this. Thank you. Okay, so why the need for immersion cooling? Well, as we know, as we're increasing the data rate, we're looking into the future at 448 gigabit per second. Obviously, the thermal demands are going to become more and more increasing, right? So if we look ahead, as Rolf mentioned earlier, towards 2013, the IT equipment is going to be more diverse. And we're saying that in a way that not just air cooling as we've known in the past, but we're starting to most of us are starting to get involved in cold plate. So if we look, cold plates themselves are expected to account for, say, 45% of the new IT systems. But as we project into the future, we need to anticipate and study the fact that these deployments may be partnered and coupled with some type of immersion as a hybrid solution in order to meet the thermal requirements. So why is signal integrity important? Well, signal integrity, a lot of people say, well, what is that? Signal integrity, if we think of electricity going through a wire, we just think of electrons running through the cable like water in a pipe. But in data, high-speed data, that's not how it happens. We have the DUT, which is obviously the mated connector. It could be, the high-speed signal contacts, the signal traces on the board, the raw cable, termination, et cetera, et cetera. That's producing an electromagnetic field. So once you take that hardware or the DUT and immerse it into, say, a dielectric fluid, that electromagnetic field is now altered to the point where insertion loss, return loss, propagation delay, everything's going to be affected. And if you look at the image on the right, you're going to see we actually took the same DUT, an OSFP 800 connector and cable. We isolated the traces in the SMAs, and we did the test on impedance. And you can see the impedance drops about 18 ohms. That's significant in signal integrity, and we have to be really mindful of that going forward. Okay?
Hi, hello. The simulation methodology, we have been concluded that the flat frequency domain model is sufficient. So on the left is a microstrip simulation and simulation for immersion, and compared to measurement in air. We measured in the flow chemical and hydrocarbon. The simulation is pretty consistent with what we simulated. On the right side of the curve is design and measurement of socket. We only design one socket for both air and immersion to reduce the system costs. Again, we found the simulation methodology is pretty well compared to what we measured in air, impedance, the difference in impedance.
Thank you, Kai. If we look at the fluids that are involved, we know the characteristics of the different immersion fluids. The three most popular, number one being the hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbon fluids are traditionally used in single phase cooling, right? The fluorochemicals are more into the closed environment, closed loop, like the two-phase cooling environment. They may be a little more limited in the supply chain, but the dielectric constant is very good in the two-phase fluid. Maybe 1.7 dK can be very good to 1.9 dK. The hydrocarbons at the top are anywhere in the range of 2.0 to, say, 2.05. pretty good performance for signal integrity, but they do have their limitations, as we'll talk a little bit later. For example, against material compatibility may be a bit of a challenge, but they're widely available. And then the esters, has been discussed at the earlier presentation, they're more of a biodegradable and very, very good bio-friendly material. Plus their flash point is greater than 300 degrees Celsius. The only consideration maybe that would be the dielectric constant is above 3. So we could say maybe 3.45. May have some effects on the high-speed signal integrity as we proceed. We look at a couple different attributes of different device under test, such as sealed optics. Here's a study that was done by Formerica where they tested 5 different cables at 5 different fluid manufacturers. Now, optical cables transmit data via light, right? So they're somewhat immune to the fluid dielectric properties of, say, the hydrocarbon materials. So the performance, as you can see here, a TDAQ, the bit error rate, et cetera, in this study, they show very little change across these 5 different fluid manufacturers, and the bit error rate stays constant from e to the minus 10 to e to the minus 12. Very good performance. On the other hand, what we've looked at is if we test and we approach copper cables, for instance, in the fluid. Both Kai and our team at FIT has done a lot of testing. You can see the image at the top. Intel has tested 112 gig long reach cables, and they tested the bit error rate for a duration of time, and they see it's still marginal for 112 gig, but they see the degradation in the bit error rate you can see on the screen. Likewise, we tested the same type of cable in the fluid in the tank. I think we talked about this last year about our test setup, where we isolated the SMAs and the traces, and we submerged just the cable and also the DUT, meaning the connector and cage in the fluid. And we see the degradation of the PAM4I diagram. You can see on the right in the blue is an error. It's a very good eye diagram, but then after testing in the fluid, you see the degradation of the eye diagram. So we're seeing about the same results. 112 gig were marginal. We really need to think about the future for 224 gig. Okay?
This is the EMI test of the immersion. The picture show in the chamber, we found the suspect frequency peak of the immersion frequency. And then we put into our tank, GRC tank. We measured before in the air and the same frequency in the immersion environment, frequency up to 8 gigahertz. What you see, the big long bar is the air result. The tiny small one, which you may not be able to see, is immersion one. What our data shows that immersion is reduced about 16 dB up to all the 8 gigahertz range. This indicates your design will automatically pass, immersion will automatically pass the EMI test when you pass the air test. Also in the immersion environment, you may be able to reduce your shielding because the immersion can reduce, so far the data shows can reduce the EMI. This is a AMD test of the mainly a crosstalk test. Again, the data shows the difference between air and immersion environment. This is up to 16 gigahertz. The conclusion is the resonance frequency change, but overall the crosstalk is not changed. Resonance frequency do shift because of the balance LC changes.
Okay, this one I know says material compatibility. It is in some ways obviously involving impact on SI, but what we talked about earlier about the hydrocarbon fluids, we did a significant study on 2 types of roll cable jacket. One was PVC and the other one was TPO. So obviously PVC, polyvinyl chloride, is traditionally in nature has the plasticizers have been established into the PVC matrix. But when we submersed it in the fluid for 21 days at 85 degrees Celsius, we saw a significant reduction in the diameter, which in this case for the SI would affect because it's going to kind of pull the high-speed signal pairs together, closer, and then also the mechanical attributes of the cable become stiffer and it's harder to manage. So PVC is not the best choice for raw cable. I think we talked, Kai, about maybe Teflon is a good material for hydrocarbon fluids. But on the other hand, we also tested TPO. TPO actually expanded a bit and became more rubbery. And also in that case, the internal raw cable for the signal pairs were loose. So we do know that there's certain attributes for single-phase hydrocarbon fluids that we need to consider. Okay. And then finally, I want to talk about potential future trends. We know as we go towards 224 gigabit per second, and even as the next generation, 448, we're going to have to consider tuning the contacts. I think we all agree that there's going to be some adjustment needs to be made for the signals. Here's an example that they're showing mirror MES, and the red curve is actually the mirror MES that was put into the fluid. You can see the impedance again, that typical 15 ohm drop in impedance. But then Molex actually redesigned the mirror MES, they call MML for mirror MES liquid. And they submersed the same mirror MES liquid into the same fluid. And you could see the impedance trailed out to around the 85 ohm range where they wanted to be. So this is considerations for future trends. We're going to have to really look at designing the contact geometry to tailor into the immersion attributes. And then in closing, Kai?
Call for action to join the SI work stream. We are part of the IT equipment working group. Currently, the white paper, if you join, you can access the white paper content to know what people in OCP has been done, document the knowledge, and we hope everyone can contribute. For example, what's your NVLink, UA link, or Ethernet data rate at 224 when you immerse it? Share the data, share the knowledge with all the people, will help the industry. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you, and again, we encourage everyone that's interested to participate and join. We look forward to that. So thank you very much. Are there any questions regarding these topics? Hopefully we can answer them. If not, yes. Okay, maybe we can answer together.
For the jacket materials, the TPE and PVC, did you do any immersions in the esters or fluorocarbons?
No, not yet. We actually are. We were talking to one of the suppliers for esters. That is actually our next consideration. We haven't done fluorocarbons because, truthfully, we're not set up for that. But for the open tank for single phase, because we do a lot of DACs, active copper cables, ACCs, AECs, we did consider that use case to see how it performed. But we haven't done esters, but that's on our roadmap, yes.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I had a question here, if you don't mind.
Yes.
At the stand.
You're
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to see by the lights.
Someone not necessarily skilled in signal integrity or cables, I noticed you use PAO as a reference fluid. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of fluids, a lot of PAOs, right? That can be very similar. You post things about like decay, other dielectric properties. How impactful is it for you if let's just say all of the immersion fluids followed a pretty rigorous spec in terms of a tight narrow margin on things like decay versus the variability that you're seeing across the immersion space as far as fluids are concerned?
Well, that's a good point. That publication actually came from the OCP document, but what I'm saying, what we think anyway, if we keep the dielectric constant close, we don't think we're going to see that much variance in SI, but I think it needs to be relatively standardized to that degree. Maybe Kai, you can comment on that.
Yeah, we release the data for people reference. For fluorochemical, it's about 1.8, around 1.8. For those pulse,
Yep.
thank you. Depends on, yeah.
Yeah, so we can actually have more time outbound if you guys want to meet outside. We can answer more questions. So thank you again.